All right. So this lecture is about data preprocessing. When we talk about data preprocessing, it is part of the second process in the analytics framework, which is acquire and prepare. So once you know which data you need to use for the analysis, you gather that data. You have already explored data last time. So now once you explore data, you may notice some things that are not normal in your data, like outliers, like some inconsistency in the data. And you need to manage that. You need to clean it. You need to maybe do some transformation of your data. So that's the topic of today. Okay. So this is what we talk about in the video. I will just skip that. Now let's do overlap. Okay. So we want to now clean and transform the superstore data for better analysis. So in this case, the best practice is that we need to take note of all the steps that we did, because we may not do this just once. We may need to, if you remember, our analytics framework is an iterative process. That means it usually comes back to us, and then you need to do something like this again and again. However, with Power Query and Excel, this thing is easier, because if you notice in Power Query, we have the apply steps on the right-hand side, right? So every step that we take, if we do it in Power Query, it will be recorded, and we can either repeat it or either remove some process or either insert some steps inside what we already did. So it comes very easily with the Power Query. Now, what we will do, these are the things that we will do today, okay? So let's first open the file, okay? So double click the file and then just open the file. You get this file. So you have around 7 sheets inside. So once you get this to open, just type 1.มีแค่2 ปากนะคนอื่นไปไหนหมดนะ
อาจารย์ครับโหลดไฟล์มาแล้วให้ทำอะไรต่อนะครับตามไม่
เปิด
ทัน
เฉยๆเปิดเฉยๆเปิดไฟล์
อ๋อโอเคครับ
Okay, so first thing we do, you take a look at the file. So this file comes from the second scenario that we did last time. So it has one column that we may not need to use, which is the source.name column. So we will remove this, but we will do everything in Power Query, not Excel. So how to get this data, because this is a new file. We didn't use the old file from lecture 2. So everything is not known by Power Query yet. Therefore, since we talked about this last time, Power Query and Excel are two separate programs. Therefore, they have two separate virtual space, right? Everything in Excel, if you do not tell Power Query, it will not know. So now, how do you tell Power Query to know and copy out this data to Power Query? You need to go to Data Ribbon again, Get Data, and then from Other Source, from Table Range. Then it will open Power Query, right? You can just change the query name, not order 30, let's say just order, okay, or rename it here. Okay, so first thing we will do once we get to load the data to Power Query, again, we need everything that we load to Power Query, it must be evaluated, it must be inspect, just like what we did last time. We need to look at the column profile. We need to look at the column attribute types to make sure that it detects correctly. And this time, one thing happened because in the date column, it happens to include not just date, but time. So the type of the data is not date, but it's a date with time. So you can see that the icon contains the clock, right? Actually, this is fine. This is fine. But if you do not need to have this time because it's already 000, right? You can change the data type back to date here. Okay, so just change it to date. Okay, and then it will ask you whether you want to replace this column type change to the current step. Why? Because you can see that once you load anything into Power Query, it will have the step to change the type for you. So here, or you can look at the M code above in the equation line. You can see that the type of the order date and the ship date is type date time. So if you use replace current, that means it will still apply to this step. Just change the date time to date. But if you choose to click add new step, it will add a new step. That means it will first change to date time, then it will change to date in another step. So the step will be separate. This is the result of clicking add step. So which one is correct, which one is not correct? For this case, it's all correct, but in some other case, it may not be, right? For example, if it's decimal number, and then you first change it to whole number, what happened? Oh, the decimal will be gone, right? Then if you want to change back to decimal, you don't get that decimal back, right? So the order of the step that you did actually results in something that are different from step to step. Okay, so you need to be careful on this. But in this case, it's okay. Right? You can just use replace current, and you do like this for ship date, right? I just change to date and replace current. So you can see that the type has just changed from date time to date. And that's it. That's what it do. Okay. So now let's get back to our cleaning data. First thing, I want to remove source.name. Actually, I don't need to remove it. I can retain it just as is, but in some other cases, when you have, like, for example, big data, removing unwanted columns may reduce your data. So this may be considered as part of the data reduction. Anything that are not used, you do not need to retain it because it will take some time, some space, right? So let's say our scenario, like we don't need source.name, so let's remove it. Just right click the header, source.name, and then choose remove. If you choose remove other column, it will do the opposite. That means we will retain that column and then remove others. Okay. So right click and then choose remove. Okay. What about row ID? actually, in this case, you can also remove row ID, but in maybe sometimes, some other case, it may be meaningful. Why? Because row ID looks like unique ID that are auto number, right? It keeps appending things. So it tells you implicit order in which your orders, sales, transaction come into your database. So maybe if we retain this, we can track something back, and we can do that later on. Okay. So let's say I want to keep row ID. I don't want to remove row ID yet. Okay, for this case. Okay, I just remove the unwanted columns, which is source.name. Now, when you do this, you have learned the data science and machine learning before. You need to check about duplicates, right? So how do you check the duplicates? How do you manage with the duplicates? You want to remove the duplicates, right? So actually in Power Query, there is a button called remove duplicates. You just click that button. It's very easy. However, don't do that. You are a data scientist, you are a data engineer, you are a data analyst. What you do, you need to know what exactly have you done. You don't just count on what the tool tells you to do. So first, before remove duplicate, you need to know, is it really a duplicate? Is it really considered a duplicate in the sense of your business? Okay, so in the case of this, instead of remove duplicates, we want to just check the duplicates first. So instead of remove, we do the opposite thing, which is keep duplicates. Now, how do we keep duplicates? Because if with the row ID here, since the row ID is unique number, right? Therefore, there will not be any duplicate at all because of the row ID. So what we do is we do not consider row ID as part of the duplicate checking. Therefore, what we do is that we only select columns that are not row ID. So how do we do that? We just select and then shift and then select the last column, this, right? But not row ID. Select other columns, every column, and then you go to home, keep rows, and then you choose keep duplicate. So this duplicate will only consider columns that are not row ID. Okay, so let's click this, keep duplicates. And hey, okay, it looks like there are duplicates, right? 2 couples, 4 rows. Okay, so let's check whether it's really duplicate. The same order ID, the same order there, the same customer, the same address, the same product, the same sales, quantity, discount, and profit. Oh, everything is the same. Otherwise, it will not be considered as duplicate, right? So, what do we need to do? This goes back to business policy and business rules. Whether you actually consider this as the real duplicates. Now, let's think about this is a superstore. It's like a department store, right? When you go to Lotus or you go to Macro Top, right? For example, you check out 2 bottles of Cokes at the checkout, and then you think, oh, I want more, right? And then you run back to get 2 more Cokes, right? 2 more bottles of Cokes. What happened? In some store, they will have separate lines, but the same, right? 2 bottles of Cokes, but separate lines, right? In some stores, they will combine these 2 of Cokes to be 4 bottles of Cokes. So this is what I say. What are your business policy? What are your business rules? Does this consider as duplicates or it's just as normal transactions? It can happen anytime. So in this case, I think most of the stores right now will consider this as two lines, two order lines. So I think it's not duplicates. It's possible that, okay, first they choose this and then they change mind and then choose another one also, the same thing. It's always possible, right? So let's not consider as duplicates. Therefore, we will not remove duplicates from here. If we want to consider as duplicate, you just check out the key duplicates and then choose remove duplicates. That's it. Very easy. Okay. So let's remove this step, kept duplicate. Okay. Just remove by clicking the cross sign on in front. Okay. And then that's back to normal. Okay. And that's it. Right. So in this case, nothing done in duplicate. Let's consider no duplicate here. Okay. Now, what do we do next? We want to standardize the column city, state, and postal code. Because right now it's in the same column, but you probably have some experience, right? When you want to analyze something, you may want to analyze separately, whether how many sales transactions come from this city or how many transactions come from this state, right? If we have this city, state, and postal code in one column, it's too difficult to do analysis like that. So first we need to standardize. That means we want to make the granularity of the data to be as atomic as possible. That is the detail, the level of the detail of the data to be atomic as much as possible. That means you cannot, atomic means you are at the atom level, you cannot divide anymore, right? So in this case, city, state, postal code, you can still divide. You can still split them into 3 different columns. So let's do this. So how can we split? There is a split button in the transform but menu over here. And then in this case, let's take a look at data. So data is like this, right? Houston, comma, space, Texas, like this. So it looks like it was delimited by comma, right? So we can choose by delimiter, and then we will choose the delimiter as comma. Actually, you do not need to choose because it already auto detect for us. It's quite intelligent in some sense. Okay, so comma, and then we will choose split at each occurrence because we have 2 occurrence of comma, and then possibly if we have, but in this case we don't have code character that separate the content in the column, we can choose the code character. But in this case, we don't, right? So we can choose or cannot choose it. It's the same result. And then click OK. Okay. So, okay, click the column city, state, and postal code. And then go to, okay, home also. We also have at home split column. Yeah. And then by delimiter. Okay. And then comma is chosen already. Each occurrence, so everything is chosen. So we just click OK. Okay, actually, we can do something more advanced, like choosing to split into the number of columns or the number of rows that we want, but we don't do that here. So just click OK. Okay, and then it's done. It's come as 1, 2, 3, right? So let's make it meaningful by changing the column headers. Okay, so this is city. This is state, province. Okay, and this is postal code. Oh, here. Okay, once you do this, just type 2. Okay, next. If you do not inspect, we just let it pass by. We will not have some details things that we haven't cleaned, which is what? First, of course, you need to check the correctness of the results after splitting. I mean, if we will find that, okay, it looks good. It choose data type text, right? It looks good. Okay? But this is only top 1,000 row, right? Let's change to entire data set. Entire data set. Okay. Right? It still looks good, right? However, you may not notice this. If you click on like Texas, you may not notice it again. But what happened? There is actually one space in front of Texas. Oops. National alert. Okay. They test the message. Why? Because at first when we split the column, right? It actually has comma and then one space and then the name of the state. So when we split, we only say we split by comma. And so this still stays with the state name. The same with postal code. There is still one space before the postal code. And then what happens if you let it remain like that? You are computer scientist, you are data, you know, right? You learn from the past several lectures that, okay, space, Texas, and Texas without space are two different strings. And when it's two different strings, when you do some analysis or you want to do like a map of Texas, it will not actually know this is actually the same Texas as this one, right? So you need to clean this. You need to get rid of this unnecessary space or unnecessary characters. Okay, how? How do we do that? We can use trim. If in Excel you have trim function that you can use, but Excel's trim and Power Query trim has some minor things that are different. The difference is in how it gets rid of the unnecessary space in the middle. So for trim in Excel, it will help you. It will remove unnecessary space in the front. It will remove unnecessary space at the back. And then it will also remove unnecessary space in the middle, because in English, right, and in most languages, if you have space in the middle of your strings, usually you only need one space, right? You don't need two or more space. Therefore, it will also get rid of this. But trim in Power Query don't touch with anything of your middle space. Why? Because it follows the same standard as SQL query. If you take a look at SQL query, if you do something with trim in SQL, it will not trim the middle. So that's why this follow that. This trim will not remove. So how do we can leave off the middle? You need to use find and replace. Okay, that's the circumvent that you need to do. So let's get back to here. We only have something unnecessary space in the at the front, so it's fine to use here. You can go to trim, right? And I will add another function that we want to apply, which is clean. So trim will remove just space, but clean will remove non-printable characters also. What are non-printable characters? Such as new line or tab. Right? Sometimes we want to remove these also, right? So we will apply both trim and clean in Power Query to actually the two new columns that we get, which is state, province, and postal code. Actually, we can also apply to every columns that are ABC, which is text. It's actually best practice also if you do that, because we use only bare eye. We don't actually see whether there are necessary or unnecessary space over there, right? So it's usually quite safe to do trim and clean with almost every columns that are text or strings, right? But it takes time to do that, so don't do that right now. We only do for these two columns. So let's go back to, so we can do with city also, but it's actually doesn't have, it's the identical things. Okay. So go to state and province, and then where is it? We can do right click. We can do right click and then choose transform and then trim, or we can go to transform here and then format, okay, and then choose trim. Oh, we also trim postal code, okay, so trim. Again, you can see, take a look at the M code. It will trim, right? Text.trim, state, province, and type still text. So this is correct. You need to be sensitive on this, on the data type. Why? Because actually postal code is number, but the data type of the postal code is not numeric. It's categorical. Therefore, if Power Query wrongly detect your postal code column to be numeric, that's a bad sign. Why? Why it's a bad sign? Because sometimes we don't want that. In this case, like in United States, they have some cities that has postal code start with 0. Let's see the filter, whether I speak correctly here. 01841. If you change this into numeric, for example, whole number, what happened? 0 will be gone. But actually, we don't want that. We need to retain the 0 here because it's not 0 in the case of numeric. So it types its text. This is already correct. So rest us. Power Query has done good things for us. So now clean. Okay, we had done trim for both of the column. We can do clean. Okay, so format the same, and then clean. Then this one also clean. Okay, once we get trim and clean, it has side effects. What side effect that we get? Anyone notice that? Once we trim and clean มีใครเจออะไรไหมหลังจากก่อนหน้านี้ไม่มีอะไรนะแต่พอเราทริมเสร็จแล้วเนี่ยเฮ้ยมันมีอะไรเกิดขึ้นหลังจากที่ทริมกับคลีนสังเกต empty ในคอลัมน์ profile ของ state province เดิม empty 0 right now it's empty less than 1%. So it means there are some empty or missing values here. Let's see where it's missing. You can filter down using the drop down. Before this, it's not considered as missing values because it has one space. But right now, the space is gone. So it is considered as missing now. But these missing values are actually easier to manage. Why? Because if you take a look at the city, it's the same city, Palm Coast. So if you remember the video that talk about the theory, right? We talk about manual imputation. So in this case, we can use the domain knowledge to find the values to impute over here. So let's say we Google, how about Google? Google, and then say Palm Coast. And then you see that, okay, so Palm Coast is a city in Florida. Florida, oh, okay, Florida. Then you know, you want to impute formula, Florida over here. So how do we impute that? We will replace the noun values, find and replace. So it's called replace values, and then it will add into an apply step, right? So first we will remove the filter rows before we. So you can see that even we filter, it will also record the filter row here. So just remove the filter rows. And then we go back, click the state province, and then go to transform, replace value here. Replace value, replace now, right? Now, so nothing. And then we replace with Florida. Okay. So, okay, keep okay. Now, it's gone, right? Empty 0%. Okay. So in this case, it actually only works for this file. And in this case, it may not actually work in general sense because it possibly that maybe there are some other cities that are not in Florida that are missing, right? In this case, you may need to have some functions that map. Maybe you need to query the database to see whether which city is in which state. So it will be a lot work to do. You don't do that, but I will tell you that it can. Okay, because you can write anything that are more complicated using encode. So you can do that. You can also have like switch statement or like a if nested if statements to map between cities and states, for example. That you can do that. But in this case, we just want to just get rid of these missing values and then only one Florida, right? So just do it. Okay. Now, there are also missing value that we have found last time, which is the now order date. This is actually quite tricky. Let's filter and see where it is. So let's go to order date. And then we want to click load more. Sometimes it doesn't show. Click load more and then choose only now. Okay. So you can see there are like 8 rows that contains now order date. So how do we clean this case? We want to take a look. You can see that there are row ID that are consecutively missing 6818 until 6825. We know the order ID, we know the ship date, but somehow order date is missing and we don't know the context around this. So how do you know the order before 6818 or is there any order after this, right? So let's remove filter. And the problem with Power Query is that it's not an application to let you take a look or inspect data easily because it uses some optimized things that for big data, right? So once you want to browse through this to get to the row that you want, 6818, you will find that it's actually very slow. So it's not a good place to browse any special or any individual rows over here. So how do you do that? You may need to make use of Excel. So let's get back to Excel by clicking close load here. Remember to change the queries to orders, okay? So close the load. Okay, and let's take a look here. You can see 6818, right? You can browse with Excel quite easily. more than the power query. Okay, 6818. Okay, over here. You can see that what happens. Actually, it is missing between the 1st January until the 2nd of January. However, you will notice that this same ID, 151750. So this should be, and then this is a 151. So this is the order of the row ID that I talk about, right? So the orders of these comes together as like line items at append, right? So 750 here should be 1st of January also. Right? So you can also do copy. It's fine, but as I said, everything you should do in Power Query. So everything will be taken note using the apply step. So you should not do things over here because otherwise Power Query will not know what you did here, and once you click refresh, it's gone. Okay, but I can show you if you want to do some filling in the blank or the now values here. You have one option in Excel, which is I can just demonstrate this for you. You don't need to follow me. Okay, so you can do this in Excel using selecting blank cells to its special cells, and then use fill in using the the equation here, reference to the previous row. So it looks like we can like copy down from the previous row to the next row. So this looks like fill down. We talk about fill down in the video, and I know that you have take a look at this before in data science course somehow. So if I click order date, you don't need to follow me. I just demo for you. And then you keyboard Control G, and then go to special blanks. Okay. And here, it will just highlight the place where you have null or missing values here. And then I can type the equation equals, and then choose the previous row. I need also to apply, right, down all the missing values. If I click enter, it will not do like that. You need to click and keep the control keyboard. So control enter, not control enter. Here we go. It's like a fill down, right? So this C6818, this C6819, right? It fill down 1st of January down the line. Okay. So this is just the demonstration. We will need to do this in Power Query. So let's get back to Power Query by double click this. Okay, or go to query, data, query, and then probably this launch Power Query editor like this. Also, it could be done. Okay, get back to Power Query. We want to fill down for the order date. Okay, let's say column profiling based on entire data set first. And then you see that they are empty, right? 8 rows, less than 1%. We click that, and then we choose transform, and then fill down. It will only fill down missing value. It will not alter your other values that are already filled. Okay, so just fill down. Okay, it's done. Empty still now 0%. Okay, so you have filled out here, right? So right now we are over here. Okay, filled out. Now 2 more we need to go, which is what we have found last time. we found that quantity somehow is too much, right? 300, usually in average, we have only 2 or 3 because it's furniture, it's very big things. And this is a B2C, business to customers. So usually customer will not buy that much, 300. It seems too big of the number. So it should be something that are considered as noise or outliers. It's outliers that are noise. It could probably be typo, right? Actually, they want to type 3, but they miss the the 00 add in, right? And also discount, this is incorrect. It's obviously incorrect data. There should not be discount that are negative, right? So minus 0, 1, we probably need to delete these 2 lines, or we can choose to change it to 0 discount. It's possible, right? So let's choose the easiest part, okay? So I will just replace 300 with 3. I will replace minus 0.1 with 0, okay? So quantity, and then replace values, 300, and replace with 3. Okay, what you need to take a look is the column statistic. Before this, let's remove first. Before this, the max is 300, the average is 3.82, right? But once I replace that, these numbers change. So average become 3.79. So you can see that average or mean is sensitive to outliers like this. So if once you remove the outlier, the average goes down because it's outlier on the last side, right? It's changed, average change. Also standard deviation also change a little bit, right? So you need to know the effect of the outliers, and you need to know the effect of killing these outliers or dealing with outliers. What we did will lead us to the data analysis that may be affected later on. Okay, so next we will replace the discount. So first the discount mean minus 0.1, which is not correct, right? Average is 0.155. Okay, let's change this. Replace values minus 0.1, then it becomes 0. Okay. All right. And then you can see that its average is possibly the same. Why? Because minus 0.1 and 0 is very small number, so it will not, it probably affect the 7th or 8th decimals, but we don't see it here. Okay? The minimum becomes 0, which is already correct. Okay, so you can see they separate the replace value into 2 separate steps with some nonsense names, right? You can change the name in your apply step so that it will be more meaningful when you get back later, and then you know which one did already done in here. So you can just right click. In my case, it opened in another monitor. So right click and then you find rename over there. You can rename. So let's say this is replace quantity. And this is replace discount. So it makes more sense, right? All right. So once you get this, you just close and load. We are done with cleaning data for our case. Okay. So once you get this, type 3. replace quantity 3ก็คือเหมือนกับกด00ลั่นเนาะน่าจะเสร็จกันแล้วไหมอ่ะโอเคเซฟกันหน่อยดีไหมเซฟไฟล์นิดนึงเนาะเดี๋ยวทำไปไม่ได้เซฟนะเซฟแอสผมขอเปลี่ยนเป็นคลีนแล้วกันเนาะคลีน Now, let's take a look at data integration and transformation. We'll talk about this together. So for data integration, it means we want to combine data from multiple sources into a coherent, which is together, store it together. When you want to integrate data, first you need to take a look at its schema, or need to understand its schema first, because the schema will tell you what you need to do with the data. For example, you have two tables, A and B, right? And then in A, you have customer ID. And for B, you have different name, but you know that it's actually identical. The equal sign with 3 lines here means identical. So B.cast number and A.cast ID is actually the same things, identical. So once you look at the schema, you try to integrate the metadata from different sources like this. One problem that you may find is that there are possible some entity identification problem in real world, right? Since it comes from different sources, it could be possible that the source provider looks at things differently. For example, one may use abbreviation, another may not use abbreviation. For example, Bill Clinton is the same as William Clinton, or maybe they come from different source from different countries. They may use different scales. This may use meter, another source may use centimeter, or it comes as different countries with different units, like one from British with British units, and one from actually British unit is used by American, okay, and the metric is used by the British, actually like this. So maybe one use pound and another one use kilogram, something like that, right? So there are these different cases that you need to manage and you need to deal with. Maybe you need to transform before it was integrate into the same source. Okay, that's possible. Another thing that we'll talk about and then we do in lab, it's called data transformation. One technique that we do transform data is to do the things called discretization, which is called, another name is called binning. Discretization means that you have a continuous attribute. You have a numeric attribute, for example, and you want to divide the range of that continuous attribute into intervals ก็คือแปลงให้เป็นช่วงถูกไหม You can change the age, like from 0 to 20 as gen alpha, or 20 to 40 as gen Y, something like this, right? This is the one very classic example of discretization. So how to do discretization? We need to have a label for each interval, and then you replace that label to the actual data values, or you may consider creating another column that represent the interval labels. You can reduce the effect is you can reduce the data size by using discretization. And discretization can be performed recursively on attributes. So you can do, for example, in this case, you put 0 and 2 into class 1, 2 and 4 into class 3, and then you can group again. Class 1 and class 3 will be class VIP, for example. In fact, you can do it recursively. You can choose to have binning strategies that are different, like sometimes you choose equal width binning. The bin are equal, the width of the bin are equal, or you can choose the binning of equal frequency. That means each bin has the same number of members, right? So you can choose whatever it sync with your business strategies or business rules, okay? So why do we need to do discretization? There are many reasons. For example, the first reason may be to simplify it and make it easier to visualize or analyze later on. You can use this discretization to handle with the outliers, because when you change it to interval, outliers will be put it into one of the bin, right? So those outliers or extreme values will not be too obvious when you take a look at the numeric continuous attribute and when you take a look at interval attribute. So we want to somehow reduce the impact of the outliers in this case. And you have learned about machine learning algorithm before. When we do discretization, this may help improve the model performance of your machine learning model. Another technique that are quite similar to discretization is called concept hierarchy generation, which means you can organize your concept or attribute values hierarchically and usually associated with data warehouse that you have seen before. Like we have dimension, and then dimension can be grouped, right? 1 year can have multiple quarters, 1 quarters, multiple months, 1 month, multiple days like this. So day can be grouped as month can be grouped as quarter. So these are things that we do some concept hierarchies. And once we have concept hierarchies, this will facilitate operation in data warehouse to take a look at data in different granularity. So the operation that will support once we have the hierarchy is to drill down or to roll up your data. Like when you analyze the trend of the sales each day, it becomes, we want to analyze the trend of the sales by month or the trend of the sales by quarter, something like this, right? And the same as discretization, you can recursively do and generate your concept in a hierarchy to be like low concept and then higher level concept like this. Or you can have different hierarchy on the same attributes. That's also possible. Okay, so concept hierarchy are usually done by experts of that domain or the designer of that database or data warehouse. And concept hierarchy can be automatically formed for both numerical and categorical data. For numeric data, we can use discretization method that we talked about before. Okay, let's get back to our data. Remember, we have order, sales, transaction, and we also have the table about customers. We also have tables about products. How do we merge that together? Remember when we do categorical box plot last time? There are only a few numbers of columns that are categorical for us to choose as categorical in the box plot, right? Therefore, we need more. We need to point and we need to pull out data from the DIM or from the dimension table like customer and product so that we have more categorical values to work with. Okay, in this case, it's the inspiration for our merge here. So when we want to merge them, what choice do we have? We'll talk about two choices today, which are using lookup functions in Excel, or we can use Power Query to merge two queries or two tables together. So let's look at the first one, lookup functions. Now, when you talk about lookup function, the first function that comes into mind is VLOOKUP. So anyone used VLOOKUP before? You used VLOOKUP before, just type 1. If you haven't used VLOOKUP before, it's type 0. ใครเคยใช้ VLOOKUP กด 1 ใครไม่เคยใช้กด 0ก็คือมีคนเคยใช้บ้างไม่เคยใช้บ้างก็คือถ้าใครเคยทำ Excel มาระดับหนึ่งเขาบอกว่าฟังก์ชันหนึ่งที่ส่วนใหญ่เขาจะเรียนรู้กันก็คือ VLOOKUP นี่แหละนะคะทำไมเนาะเพราะมันใช้ง่ายนะคะมาดูกันว่ามันใช้ง่ายมันเหมือน it seems like I'm so sleepy today I want to buy some coffee I go to 7-Eleven and then I take a look at the board above that says, okay, what coffee do they sell? Cafe latte, cappuccino, caramel macchiato, cafe mocha. Okay, let's say I want to order cafe mocha. I want the medium one, which is the grande. Actually, this comes from Starbucks. Okay. So what we take a look at the board in 7-Eleven, it's just like we do VLOOKUP. V comes from vertical. Lookup comes from search. Right? That means we search vertically. So we need to have the keyword that we want to search, in this case, cafe mocha. And then it will scan vertically from up to down until we find what we want to find, which is cafe mocha. Once the VLOOKUP found, it will move the eyesight to the right hand side only look right ก็คือ VLOOKUP เจอปุ๊บเนี่ยมองไปทางขวาเท่านั้น and then it will use counting of the column So this column that first is the first. This is if you want grande, right? You want medium one. You need to tell VLOOKUP that, okay, let's get the results from the third column from the left-hand side. And then it will return 3.95 for you. Okay. So with VLOOKUP, although it's very easy to use, it comes with some limitation. The first limitation is that the range of the data that you give to VLOOKUP to take a look needs to have the search column on the left-hand side only. The search column cannot be on the right, right? It needs to be on the left most ต้องเป็นซ้ายสุดเท่านั้นคอลัมน์แรกซ้ายสุดหรือคอลัมน์ที่นับเป็น1จะต้องเป็นคอลัมน์ที่มีค่าที่เราจะ search นะคะนี่คือข้อกำหนดของ VLOOKUP โอเคนะคะ so let's take a look at the definition and how to use the equation. First, let's say I have this data in Excel, right? And then I want to find coffee mocha of size M. So I use VLOOKUP. Look up what? Look up A14. Look at where? Where do we look up? We look up at here, up above the board, right? You can also include the header here, or you do not need to include the header, but whatever, you need to give it a range of what they need to look at, and you can see that the first column in the range must be the column that contains cafe mocha. So in this case, I can cover all the thing here. So A2 to D10, this is the range that I need to tell VLOOKUP to take a look at. And I have dollar sign. What does it mean by dollar sign? Over here. Dollar sign หมายความว่าไงครับ Dollar sign means you want to fix the range นะ you want to fix ห้ามอยู่ที่ A นะห้ามขยับอยู่ที่เซลล์ที่2นะห้ามขยับโรที่2ก็คือเวลาเราใช้ Excel เนี่ยบางทีเนี่ยเวลาเราคลิกลากสูตรเนาะมันจะขยับสูตรให้ใช่ไหมจาก2เป็น3เนี่ยถ้าเราไม่อยากให้ขยับเราต้องใส่ดอลลาร์ไซน์ข้างหน้านะคะก็คือ fix ลงไปใช้วิธีกด F4 เนาะนี่ก็คือวิธีการ fix นะคะกรณีนี้จริงๆมันไม่ fix ก็ได้เพราะว่าเราใส่แค่สูตรเดียวเราไม่ได้มีการลากนะคะแต่ usually to be safe ก็แนะนำmy suggestion is to fix it find what find where and then one how many columns to look right ก็คือจำนวนคอลัมน์ที่มองไปทางขวากี่คอลัมน์ in this case 3 columns we want to medium ใช่ไหม medium ก็ 3 ก็ใส่3นะคะ and the third parameter is called range lookup actually it's called the mode of the search the match mode if you it's an optional parameter you can see the bracket means optional parameter you do not need to type anything actually but my suggestion is to type to choose the mode because in most cases up above 80% you usually choose the mode that are not default mode so what is the default mode default mode is true is approximate match not 80% up we usually use exact match exact match ก็คือหาคาเฟ่มอคค่าหาต้องพิมพ์แบบนี้เลยนะเป๊ะๆไม่ใช่พิมพ์แบบคาฟ่ามอคค่าอะไรอย่างนี้แตกต่างไม่ได้นะคะเพราะฉะนั้นโดยปกติเราก็จะไม่ได้ใช้ approximate match โดยปกติเราจะใช้ exact match ดังนั้นต้องใส่ this is requirement this is mandatory that usually will say false okay or 0 okay. So in conclusion when we talk about VLOOKUP the partner or the twins of VLOOKUP is HLOOKUP H means horizontal so VLOOKUP means up down right HLOOKUP means left to right and then once it's filed it will look below right to the row that we want. If it's we look up, find scan up, down, and then look to the right to find the column that we want. So this becomes row index number. This is column index number. And then the things are the same. You just change from this to this, right? Okay. So now let's practice how to use VLOOKUP with our data. Order sheet for Power Query, okay? So let's copy order sheet and choose create a copy here. Copy, right click on the order sheet and then create a copy. Okay, and then okay. It becomes order two. Okay, let's check the table name. Here, table design. Table name here, right? Orders, let's change it to orders two. I know why it choose order A for us. Okay. Since you know that Power Query will always create table format for you, right? It will help you here when you write some equations, because when you have table format of your data, you can reference the content or the data in the things called structure reference. พิมพ์ชนกมีคำถามไหม
ไม่มีค่ะอาจารย์ขอโทษค่ะมือหนูไปโดน
Oh, structure reference. What is structure reference? Usually when you use equation in Excel, we actually reference by the cell, the column, right? A0, A4, C5, something like this, right? But with the format as table, we don't use that. We use something that are very, very similar to Python pandas. Remember data frame in pandas, right? You can actually reference the data frame using the name of the data frame, which is the name of the table, the column in the data frame, right? The rows in the data frame, something like this. So it looks quite almost the same over here. So if you take a look at the manual of the structure reference, structure reference with Excel tables. So you can see that instead of something like this, we will use something like this, right? The name of the table, in this case, department sales, and the name of the column, in this case, sales amount. Okay, so it will try to minimize the error that would happen when you work with data that is quite big. So you use the things called specifier to specify the name of the column, the range of the column like this, right? I want column salesperson to sales amount. Just like in pandas, you can do something like this, very similar, right? And you can specify the item that you want, or mean the entire table, including everything, including header, including total row, if there's any. The data, only just the data row, no column headers. Headers are very specific, just the column headers. Right? Total, there will be total row. We'll talk about this later on. Right? And assign mean this row, the same row, but different columns maybe. Right? So let's study case by case, right? And then it's actually that it's not difficult. You can just study using what we did in lab. Okay, so let's take a look at how we use this. Let's say we want what's that? Customer, right? Customer ID. I want to look up DP13000. Probably. Okay, 1300 over here. Customer name is Darren Powers. Okay, you take a look at that. And then if you use VLOOKUP to fill up from this to orders table, it looks like we are doing a merge. That's why it's called lookup function can be used as indication of data. So let's create two. Okay, we click on the right column and then right click and then we choose insert twice. Okay, one is customer name, we change header, and one is segment. Okay, so we look up equals VL and then we can just tap. Okay, we look up 5 watt, look up DP1300C. It becomes bracket assign. That means this row, this same row, what is the value in the customer ID column, which is this column. Okay, find this and then comma, next argument is where to find. You know that we have customer table, it's called customer, right? It's called customer, and then we choose where in the customer, maybe the whole thing. Okay, the whole thing is all. Oops, all. Like this. Or you can choose data. It works also, right? It's whether come with column headers or no column headers. Can be data, can be all. Or we can choose the range from customer ID to segment. It also works. Okay. And then once it's found which column that we want, it's the second column because it's customer name, right? 2. And then the mode should be 0 or false. Okay. So this is what we have. And put the equation in the chat. Now, once you're done, you need to take a look at what the result, right? Take a look very easily using the drop down. Is there missing value? Okay, none, right? Is there error? Okay, none. So it's fine. But you cannot just trust it that it will be cleaned. Whether customers will be cleaned, maybe it's not. For example, maybe the customer ID is not available. Let's say I add 0 more. Then it will tell you, okay, error, n/a mean non-available, not available. It's an error. So it's usually be a best practice to catch these errors before it goes to analysis. Just like when you do Python, right? You need to write try and except just to catch, right? Catch some errors and then change those errors into more soft label or wordings. So let's say we want to catch every possible type of error. It could be n/a error, it could be value error, it could be anything else. So we can catch that using if error. Actually, we also have if NA, but that will only catch NA error. If we want to catch every error possible, you need to use if error. If error, right? If not error, just return the VLOOKUP result. If it's error, let's say we say unknown customer. This, right? Okay. The good thing about format as table reference is that once you change the equation in one of the row, it will also change the equation on other rows also with the same columns. So it's done automatically. You don't need to click and drag your equation again. Let's change back. Okay. Now it's 14:52. So I give you some more minutes to do segment for your own. Try to do this on your own first, and then we'll get back, and then let's see what happens with this column. Okay, use table reference if possible. Okay, so 14:55, let's say 15:05, 10 minutes นะคะแล้วก็เดี๋ยวกลับมาเฉลยข้อนี้ใช้ VLOOKUP เนาะ Okay, so actually the equation is pretty much the same. We just change where. Okay, just copy. Okay, where to change? Just one number. Right? By what? By where? The same. It's the column index number that's changed from 2 to 3. So just change this number to 3 because we choose the whole customers table. Okay. And let's change this to unknown segment so that it's very meaningful. Okay, and that's it. Okay, we can check whether it's correct, right? Okay, it's correct. Any unknown? No, nothing. So data is quite clean. Okay, just use the same, right? Just change 2 to 3 and then unknown, just customer to unknown segment. Right? So if you're done with this VLOOKUP, type 2. ถูกไหมถูกก็ได้ถูก Okay. Let's take a look after this. So what if the match mode becomes 1 or its default? What happened? It becomes approximate match. So when we use approximate match, it means that if we cannot find the exact match, the approximate match will try to choose the lower level, lower value, less than value that is less than the one that we want to find with the largest number or largest characters. So this is the rules for only VLOOKUP. If you choose 1 or 2 in the range lookup or match mode. If the exact match cannot be found, the approximate match will be the largest value in the range that is less than ก็คือค่าที่น้อยกว่าที่มากที่สุดนั่นเอง So how do you know it's less than, right? Excel is not AI per se. You need to order for them. So you need to sort the column that you want to look up ascendingly from small to large. Right? Either it's number, you can sort that, or either it's text, A come before B, right? B come before C. So it's possible to sort that. Otherwise, how do we know that? When you have the number or the text to search, and then you go over that value or number, you can get back one step to find the value that is largest one that is less than right ก็คือหลักการคือถ้าคุณไม่ซอร์ตคุณจะรู้ได้ไงว่าสมมติไล่หาไป vertically 1 2 3 4 5แล้วมันเกินแล้วจะกลับไปตรงไหนอะที่มันจะได้ค่าที่น้อยกว่าที่มากที่สุดก็คือกลับไปแค่1 สเต็ปที่มันทำได้ก็คือแสดงว่าคุณต้องสอน Let's take a look at the case example that we use. We can use approximate match in the case of data analysis by doing discretization or binning again. Or it can be used as concept hierarchy generation because we can transform numerical values or text right, into categorical values right away using VLOOKUP approximate match. For example, I want to grade student scores of 0 to 100 to A, B, C, D, F, or E for MOSOW. Right? You first need to come up with grading criteria. For example, my grading criteria is that if you get the score 0 to 50, but not including 50, so we have mathematics here. This is left close. So left close means including left. That means 0 is including but open right. So 50 means not including 50. It can be 49.999 but not 50. Right? So where are we? Here. Okay. So not including 50. The same here. If we get 50 till 60, not including 60, we get a D. 60 to 70, not including 70, 20 is 80, and 80 to infinity. Okay, it will become A. Okay. So if you have 1 million scores, you will also get A. There's no error in this case. But if you have the score of minus, what happened? Minus 100, for example. Minus 100 is less than the first criteria, right? So when you go to use minus 100 to search, this is the first column on the left. This is the one that we search, right? Usually it's the left close interval. We search 0 is larger than minus 100. So we look up need to go back one step, but there's no step to go back. So in this case, it will report an error. Here. Okay, so if it's on the right hand side, it will not be error. But if it's beyond the leftmost, smallest one, it will have errors. Okay, so let's get back to our student score 66. What happened? We look up to search, so it's search 66, no, 66, no, 66, no, 66, no, but it's 70 already over 66, so it goes back one step to says, okay, then 60 will be the match, which is the largest value that is less than 66, and then it will return grade C. Okay, so when I grade you, I usually use VLOOKUP like this. I don't use if. Actually, you can also write if the nested if, right? Nested like 5 or 6 nests. It looks messy. This using VLOOKUP looks better, right? So let's now create a concept of discount. We know that from the exploratory data analysis before that, usually the discount that we get from Superstore is about 0 to 20, right? So we make it a concept, right? If it is 0 to 55%, but not including, it calls average discount. If it's 25% up until 55, but not including, it will be large discount. And if it's more than 55% till infinity, it will be deep discount. Okay, and we expect that there should not be negative discount. So let's add one more column beside profit here. Let's say discount concept. Okay, so this is one of the advantage of having format as table. Once you have new columns, it will include this column into part of the table automatically. Okay, so we will use VLOOKUP. Okay, we can use if error to just catch the error. Okay, VLOOKUP. Okay. Look up what? Look up discount, right? Look up discount. Look up where? Look up at discount bin. Since we didn't make discount bin to be format as table, so we need to choose the range. Maybe you can choose here like this and then fix using F4 here. Oops. F4 again. Okay, like this. Or you can choose the whole columns like this. It works both. Okay. So once you get that, you choose the second column. Okay, and then now it's not false, it's true. Okay, if it's minus, it's incorrect discount. Let's say. Okay, so this is our equation here, our formula here. Discount concept. We look up discount, look up at discount bin, column A to B, and if find with approximate match true, then we choose the value of the label in second column. And if it's not found, it becomes negative discount, then you say it's incorrect discount. There you can check. Let's say if I put this at minus, right? Incorrect discount. So let's check. Okay, so it's just average, large, and deep. Okay, let's summarize the VLOOKUP and also HLOOKUP. If I talk about VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP is the same, right? VLOOKUP only looks right, that means HLOOKUP only looks below, right? VLOOKUP finds the first match only. So if you have several match, it will not just go to all the match. And VLOOKUP is case insensitive, not case sensitive. That means Janet with all capitals Janet is the same as Janet with lowercase, right? And be aware of the match mode, right? If you not specify match mode, the default will be approximate match, which is what you not, it's rare to use that, okay? And if you actually want to use approximate match, data must be sorted ascendingly, okay? You can use format as table or name range to predefine the name. It will make VLOOKUP to be more portable, more easier to read, more interpretable. And since VLOOKUP count the number of columns, if you insert column in between, the equation will be break. Okay. You can also use other functions, says column, row, or mesh to automate the row and column index to be more flexible. Instead of counting, you can just move using column or row. Okay. VLOOKUP also allow wildcards. That means you can partial match in the exact match mode only using the wildcard characters asterisk asterisk mean one or more characters. You have learned about regular expression before, right? And question marks mean 0 or 1 character. So for example, if you specify the thing that you want to search is man star, that means it will match money, it will match money, right? It will match manon, something like this, okay? And don't forget to trap or detect errors like /A error or other errors to display a softer message or friendly message using if and A or if error. Okay, so you can see that VLOOKUP is very easy to use. However, it's not actually flexible enough. The thing is that you need to put the column that you need to search on the left-hand side always. What if you cannot do that? What if sometimes the data is big and if you move things around, it will break? Or maybe data is not yours, you cannot change anything. But the column that you want to search are on the right-hand side of the column that you want to return. What happens? The thing is you need to choose other functions. In this case, you can choose index match. Index match are two functions, so it combined together to come up as a more powerful functionality for you, right? So index is a result-oriented function. That means it only goes to the results column that you want. For example, this column that contains the concept level, right? So when you specify parameter with index, it is the return value range, maybe that column that you want to return things. However, the whole column, you don't know which row you want to return, right? Therefore, index needs to count on another function, which is match. So match is like a lookup function. Therefore, you need to give it the lookup value, and you need to give it where to look up. But in this case, where to look up, you can just specify that column or that row. You don't need to specify the whole thing with the requirement that the thing that you look up is on the left-hand side anymore. Okay, it can be anywhere on the left, on the right, on the top, on the bottom. It can be rows, it can be columns, right? So specify the value that you want to look up, specify the column or the row that you want to look up, and the type of the match, which is the lookup mode or match mode, just like in VLOOKUP. However, right now the match mode comes in 3 options. 0 is still the same, looks exact match, and it's not default. 1 is the same as 1 in VLOOKUP. It will return the largest value that is less than. Also, it's a default one, and the lookup array must be sorted ascendingly. It also comes up with the 3rd option, which is -1, which is opposite of 1. So -1 means you get a smallest value that is larger than the one that you are finding. So your lookup array must be sorted descendingly. ก็คือ1กับ-1ก็คือตรงข้ามกัน ก็คือเดิม VLOOKUP มันไม่มี-1 แต่ว่าพอ index match มันมาทีหลังเนาะมันก็เลยมี-1ด้วย ก็คือแทนที่จะหาค่าที่น้อยกว่าที่มากที่สุดก็สามารถหาค่าที่มากกว่าที่น้อยที่สุดมาได้ ก็ขึ้นกับ logic. It depends on your logic. Whether you need left close interval or you need right close interval. If you have right close interval, you choose -1. If you need left close interval, you choose 1. That's it. Okay. So let's use index match to get the regional manager for each region. So you have regional manager sheet that I didn't put it as table. And I have this region. So I will add more columns here. Region, okay? Add, insert. And this is regional manager. And you note that the region is on the right-hand side. So you cannot use VLOOKUP directly. If you want to use VLOOKUP, you have to move around, right? To have region on the left-hand side. But let's say you cannot, you don't want to do that. This is not your data. Okay, so I will use index match instead. In this case, of course, we need if error. Okay, and index go directly to the result. Where's the result? It's in column A. Right? And comma, let's get back. So I need so when you switch between sheets, please be careful of what it try to automatically fill it for you. Sometimes you don't want that. Okay. So index, and then I need column manager A, but I don't know which row. I need to call match. Hey match, come help. Match says, what do you want to find? What do you want to look up? I want to look up this region. Okay. And where I want to look up, comma, I want to look up at this column B. And the mode of the lookup is exact match 0 or false, it's fine. Okay. And then just parentheses, close parentheses for match, close parentheses for index. And also if error, it becomes unknown manager. Say like this. Hit that. Let's see. Okay, we have 4 managers, right? If we have some typo here, it will be unknown manager. Okay. What's this? All right, now the third lookup functions that we talk about, actually there are some others that can do some things like this. Right. The third one is just come up a few years before. Okay, it come only for Excel 365 only, none of this in Excel or Office 2021, 2023, there's none, right? So if you type X lookup and then you cannot find it, that means your Office version is not Excel 365. Okay, so X lookup is a new function. That means it combines the functionality of index match to be flexible, but with the easy things to do, just like VLOOKUP, which is to use only one function, which is XLOOKUP. So XLOOKUP, find what? Lookup value. Find where? Lookup array. And now this lookup array is like the match. You can just go to that column. And it separates return array. So you go to the column that you want to return. Again, when you use index match and XLOOKUP, you need to sync, because when you have 2 columns to look up and return like this, just like in index match also, right? The first row of what you look up and the first row of what you return has to be the same thing, has to be synced. Otherwise, it depends on counting, right? If your one and my one are not the same, what happens? The result is not correct, right? So you need to make sure that this is synced both in index match and XLOOKUP. So this must be 6. Okay. Now XLOOKUP comes up with the first optional parameter called if not found. If not found means that if the match is not found, what label or what return you need to return instead of errors. Right? So that means you can specify the unknown thing here. You don't need if error anymore, but actually you need, because this only detect n/a error. It does not detect other types of error. So somehow at the end you need end up with still deferrer. Another optional parameter is called match mode. Match mode are almost the same as index match, but different. Okay, same but different. So 0 means exact match, of course. But now 0 is the default because XLOOKUP comes later on, so they know what people usually need. They need 0 to be default. Before that, no, 0 is not default, 1 is default, right? So now 0 is default, and if it's not found, it will return n/a. 1 and -1 are almost the same as index match, but opposite. ก็คือก่อนหน้านี้1หมายถึงอะไร1หมายถึงค่าที่น้อยกว่าที่มากที่สุด มันดูแปลกๆไงเพราะอะไร1มันคือค่าบวก-1คือค่าที่มากกว่าอ้าวทำไม-1มันกลายเป็นค่ามากกว่าเนาะมัน to conflict on the sense here, so they change it over here in XLOOKUP. So 1 means that it will return, if not found, exact match, it will return the next larger item. So it will be larger item that is the smallest one. In another case, y -1 means it will return the next small item that is the largest one. คราวนี้ก็คือ make sense แล้วเนาะคือ-1ก็เป็นค่าที่น้อยนะ1ก็เป็นค่าที่เยอะนะคะ They also separate wildcard match to be option 2. Okay, so separate distinctly นะคะ The last optional is called search mode. So search mode is actually for geek, just like us, because we can choose to perform search more efficiently if we know that the data is sorted. Since you study data structures and algorithm before, you know that if it's a linear search, the big O is big O(n), right? So -1 and 1 is the search mode that you do linear search. It's either 1 means top to bottom, -1 means the bottom to top, something like this, right? There's different direction only. But if you choose 2, that means it will try to use binary search. Possibly it will create a binary search tree. So with the binary search, it will be big O log n, right? So it's more efficient, it's faster in most of the cases. But your lookup array needs to be sorted. 2 means sort ascending. -2 means sort descending. Otherwise, if it's not sorted, the results will not be correct, may not be correct. Okay, and that's for efficiency only. If you do not understand, just don't need to put in anything, it will be default to 1. Okay, so now let's merge products information into our sales orders transactions main sheet. And let's call main sheet fact sheet. Okay, so let's create 3 more columns here beside the product ID. So, and then we specify this is category, this is subcategory, and this is product. Okay. Now we use XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP XL กดแท็บเลย XL lookup what? Lookup product ID. Now lookup where? So I know that products table has been formatted as table, so I can use table reference, structure reference, products. Where to look at? Of course, look at column product ID, right? Product ID. Where to return? Products, column, category, right? This I want category. If it's not found, then it will be unknown category. Let's say sorter. And then match mode, actually exact match, right? But you may not need to specify here because it's already formed. And search first to last. Okay, I know that it's not sort. I can use 1 or -1. Okay. And the same with the VLOOKUP things. It only find first match. It will not go beyond the first match. So if you find a match, it stop. Okay. And that's it. Let's see how many categories we have. Oh, we only have 3, right? Okay, that's fine. We can further use if error if possible. Okay. Actually, we need to, but just to be quick. Okay, so subcategory and product name are yours. Okay, I would have 4 minutes. If 336, it should be 340, and then we'll take a look at what we need to change. Just change a little bit only. So for subcategory and product name are yours. If you are done, just type 3. Okay, actually, I have all the equations in my slides. You can also use my slides. So what's changed? Only the column names that you want to return is changed, right? So in the case of this, category becomes subcategory, right? And category becomes product name. And maybe change this wording, and that's it. Very easy. Right? So I just copy this, and this becomes subcategory. Right? Oops. This become product name. And known product, right? Don't forget to take a look at the results before you go on to the next steps, right? Every steps you need to validate the results that you get from all the equations that you try. Right? Check whether it's correct, whether there's errors that you may not expected. Actually, with index match and X lookup, you can do two-way lookup. What does it mean today? It means that you may want to find something using both row and column. You can do also something like that. Use two X lookup nested together, or using index match and two match nesting inside one index. Something like that. That means you have like a big example, you have things like this sheet, and you want to find this, and you know the name of the rows, the name of the columns, and then you want to get the return result here, you can look up, right? You can look up here, you can look up here, and then you find here. Just like with pandas, right? You can specify the row and the column name, and then you get the cell inside. That's called a two-way lookups. Okay. Now, another option to merge is to use Power Query. So this Power Query is called merge query or join query. So it's actually, I don't need to actually talk about this at all because you already encounter this in your database or data engineer or right, data architecture, right? Using SQL are the same. Here you have two table left and right. You want to join. You have what option of choice? Left join, right? Left join, left or left outer join means everything in the result on the left tables. If it's matched or if it doesn't match from the right table will be on in the results. Right, outer join, right? Inner join, so only the match. Full outer join, everything, including match and not match. Also, three others that may not be quite used, it's quite rare, right? Which is left entire join, which means you only need the one that not match on the left hand side. Right entire join, the one not match on the right hand side. Full entire join, the one not match on both the left and right tables. Okay, so 80% up, usually you use left outer join and inner join, right? Okay. So let's see how to use that. Of course, we will try to come up with demo first, right? Let's see. Goes to sheet, multiple join conditions here. So you can see the problem with VLOOKUP index management and XLOOKUP is that it cannot look up two columns at the same time. This is first problem. It also cannot do more than first match. But you can solve that with Power Query here because it's a join. So for example, in this case, you have item ID, color, right? And this is also item ID and color. You want to merge these two. It's like you write a SQL query, right? Select the item ID on the left equal right dot item ID and left dot color equals right dot color, right? On the join query. So this is the same here. You can choose to have many or multiple columns to match, but you cannot do this with the VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP. There are some things that can be around solution for the VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP. In this case, you can do something like this. You can combine item ID and color together in one column and just concatenate using ampersand like this. Once you concatenate, it will be an ID, right? So you can do this on both sides and then you can look up instead of two columns together, you can look up only one, right? But it's not handy, right? This way it's too difficult, it's too complicated. You usually don't want to do that. It's come with a report, right? So it's not good. It's better to use Power Query. And in this case, right, you have 1001 read twice. Let me see. Not twice. I have 1004 read twice. Okay. I have 1004 read twice here. If it's VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP or index match, only the first match will be returned. But if you want to return more than a match, one match, in this case, you want to return both 10 and 20 price. You cannot use lookup functions, right? You need something that are more complicated, like writing macro, or in this case, choose to use Power Query. So Power Query could solve you that. Okay, so first, since these two tables in the multiple join conditions sheets are not known by Power Query yet, just like when we first talk about our order sales transaction. So we need to make Power Query know the data in these two tables. Let's choose the first table on the left-hand side. Click anywhere in the table and then go to data. All right, get data. And then from other sources, just like what we did before, right? From table range. Okay, just load this into Power Query. Let's change the name of the table to be left. Okay, so that we can choose easily later on. And then actually you need to do the same, just like what you did last lecture. You check data attribute, check data profile, whatever. Okay, let's say it's already clean. Okay, and then instead of choose cross and load, you don't choose that in this case. Why? Because I don't want to have multiple copies of the data into Excel. I already have one, right? I already have the data here. I don't want to have another copy. If I choose cross and load here, it will have another sheet with the same data. So in this case, I don't want that. So how do I know? How do I do? I instead choose cross and load drop down. And then instead of cross and load, I choose cross and load 2. I choose cross and load 2 and then import data using only create connection. Only create connection means you don't copy into Excel again. That means if you do that, you copy from Excel to Power Query, you copy from Power Query the same thing into Excel, so multiple copy, it's just a waste, right? So I choose only create connection here. That means I only link this data with the data in the Power Query, and that's it, okay? So click OK. Do the same with the right table, okay? So click anywhere in the right table, get data from other sources, from table range. Okay, and this is right table. Okay. And then I choose Gaussian load 2. Gaussian load 2. Only create connection. And click OK. Okay, now left and right is already connected. Power Query already known them. Now you can use join or merge query to combine them together using both column item ID and color. Okay. So we can go to get data here. Okay, and let's wait for you guys. I'm not sure that you are with me or not. Okay. So if you guys are with me, just type 4. Okay, 4. Okay. Now go to get data again, combine queries, and then merge. Now let's take a look at what is your left table, what is your right table. So left is up, right is down. So just choose the name which are meaningful for us. Left, right, and then the right one. Okay. And now you need to choose the condition, the criteria to join between these two tables. Just like when you write SQL query, right? Join which and which. So you click item ID and then you click Control on your keyboard and then color. So you can see a subscript of numbers over here, 1 and 2. It depends on the order that you click. That means you need to click the same order in the right, otherwise it will not match, right? So you click item ID first and then color like this, right? It will preview you how many matches. If it's wrong, for example, if I choose color before item ID, right? Color will be 1. So item ID and color will not match. And this will say select column to continue warning. That means it doesn't match anything, right? So please beware of this column order. So 1, 2 here, and then 1, 2 here. And then choose the join kind, which is left join, right join, inner join, anti-join, whatever you want, right? Let's say in this case, inner join and full outer join should have the same result. I choose, I think in the slides, I choose inner join. Okay, let's choose inner join. It means only the match. Okay, so something might not be matched, like well, it's not match. 1001 blue here, right? 1001 blue on the right hand side doesn't match anything on the left hand side. Okay, so this will not be in the results. Okay, so click OK. Now it seems that the result has not been done or displayed yet. Why? Because it still lets us choose. Because now the left-hand side table has already shown. However, the right-hand side table are zip or are still in a compound object over here. So you can see that it shows you as table. Let's click somewhere in the table. You can see that 1001 red match with 1001 red, one row here. Let's look at the fourth row. 1004 red match with 1004 red on the right hand side. So this is where it encrypt or it zip in the compound entity over here. So we need to boost it up to expand it. So where do you expand it? You click this back-to-back arrows. It calls expand. And then choose expand, right? We talk about aggregate later on. And it lets you choose the columns that you want. This is like select query. Select item ID, left dot item ID, left dot color, right dot item ID. You want to choose it or not, it depends on yourself. So if I say, okay, item ID and color are the same, so don't choose it. I only choose the price I want. Now, there is a tick label over here, whether you want to name the new column that expand using the name of the table, the right table. If you check the label here, it means that it will add the prefix of the table name before the name of the column, so it becomes right.price. Why? Because they are afraid that you will have the same column names. Because everything in Power Query are referenced by the column header, column name, right? So it's not okay, it's not quite okay to have the same column name, otherwise things will be ambiguous and it will be messy later on. So let's say I want to add this prefix. So I check this use original column name as prefix, and then I click OK. So you can see it becomes 5 rows because 1004 red matched twice on the right hand side table, right? And the column names will be right.price. This is what I get, right? If you change idea, you want, oh, you do not want inner join anymore, you can just go back to source and then click the gear. Right? And then you could just change, very easy. You want, let's say you want full outer joy. Okay, right? It comes with some rows that are now because 1004 blue, right? It's not matched anywhere. So let's get back to inner joy. You know what now? Okay. Now, let's say I'm very satisfied with this result. Let's evaluate the same thing, data type, whatever. I change the name of the query. Let's say merge results. Say results. And then I close the load. Why I don't use close the load tool? Because this is the result table. I don't have the result table yet in my Excel, right? I want to copy the result table data into Excel. So I choose close the load. And that's it, what I get, right? If you change your mind, you can go back to Power Query again, and then you just change the joy kind. It's very easy with Power Query. Okay, anyone with me here? Just type 5. Okay, so let's get back to our main topic, right? Which is we actually want to join between order sales transaction and the customer table. Actually, we also want to even go join with product tables, right? We can do that in one pipeline in Power Query. Okay, but since right now it's 4:02, I'm afraid that we don't have time, right, to do everything here today. So let's save what you have here first. Okay, let's stop here and then we'll come back next time to demo how do we do this. But so to let you think about it, so maybe you can try on yourself, because actually I have some instructions for you. You can try at home before we actually have a solution next week later on. Okay, so but for the lab 3 you just save and then just upload this. That's it, okay, for today. Okay, so this will be next week. But before we end today, I would just want to conclude this is from TED Excel Facebook page. I take that credit from that. From our experience of mingling, wrangling with data for 2 weeks, we have found that we can have a best practice to prepare a well-structured data for analysis. This is structured data for analysis only, not for report. Okay, so if you want to prepare a data for analysis first, you can see that everything you use either with the format as table, Excel table, or with the column in Power Query, everything is referenced by column header. Therefore, you don't need to use 2 rows column header, only 1 row หัวตารางต้องเป็นชั้นเดียวอย่าไปทำ2 ชั้นมาเพราะว่าถ้าทำ2 ชั้นมาก็ต้องมานั่งแก้ให้มันเหลือชั้นเดียวอยู่ดีไม่งั้น Power Query หรือ Excel Table จะไม่รู้จัก Second thing, the same concept, the same data need to be in the same column, not multiple columns. For example, on the left hand side, you have sales, but it could be sales from books, it could be sales from food, it's sales. So you need to have only 1 column for sales, ยอดขาย and then you separate the category of sales into another column. This is what you need to do instead of หนังสือ 1 column, อาหาร 1 column, or cream 1 column. Okay. This is a generality of data. It has to be the same generality. Completeness of data, you should not leave it as now. You work with data a lot before, right? If it's now or missing value, you need to do something with that. So why not prepare that to be complete right away just from the beginning? You should not use merge in Excel for raw data. You need to fill in everything, even it's the same thing. You should not have a conclude or total rows. Total row is fine for report or for analysis, but not for raw data. So you should not have that. Okay, that's it for today. Okay, any question now? Okay, so 2 things left today. The first thing is homework. So you already submitted homework 1, right? Homework 2. We show this homework 2. It's called exploring and preprocessing. Okay, let me talk in Thai so that you will understand better, because I already wrote English here. ก็คือว่าจาก project objective ของเราเนาะที่เราทำมาใน homework 1เนี่ยให้เราใช้ Gen AI มันจะใช้ ChatGPT Gemini แล้วแต่ก็คือให้ generate syntactic dataset สักประมาณ 1,000 โรหรือ 1,000 อัพนะคะก็คือให้ 1,000 โรนี้เป็น fact table นะคะคุณคงลองเจนมาตอนที่ทำในโฮมเวิร์กหนึ่งคงเห็นแล้วแหละว่าพวก ChatGPT Gemini มันก็จะมีเหมือน table หลักที่เป็น transaction table fact table ให้คุณอยู่นะคะอันนั้นน่ะสักประมาณ1,000 โลก็คือเป็น table ที่เป็นเรื่องของ transaction ของ move ใช่ไหมหรือ not move account ก็แล้วแต่คุณต้องรู้ในใจนะว่าไอ้บัญชีม้าเนี่ยมันไม่ได้เป็นทุกบัญชีมันค่อนข้างเป็นส่วนน้อยอย่างนั้นต้องเอา domain knowledge ตัวเนี้ยเข้าไป incorporate ตอนที่ gen data ด้วยนะก็คือคุณอาจจะต้องให้ context ของปัญหาคุณก่อนหรือทำต่อจากเอ่อบุคราวที่แล้วก็ได้พร้อมคราวที่แล้วเนอะมันก็จะเข้าใจ context คุณก็คือคุณก็ต้อง define schema นะคราวที่แล้วเขาคง suggest schema ให้คุณได้แล้วคุณอาจจะต้องมาปรับเองด้วยหรือเปล่าเนอะจากปัญหาที่คุณเลือกนะคะแล้วก็ make sure ว่า data ที่ generate มาเนาะมันค่อนข้าง realistic นิดนึงแล้วก็น่าจะ support การวิเคราะห์ได้จริงๆนะครูเท่าที่ดูแคนวาสของบางกลุ่มเนี่ยมันเหมือนยังไม่ค่อยละเอียดนะครูไม่แน่ใจว่าตอนที่เราสร้าง question เนี่ยมันไม่ละเอียดหรือว่ายังไงเนาะอยากจะให้เราละเอียดมากขึ้นเพราะไม่งั้นคุณจะเจนตัวนี้ไม่ได้เนาะมันจะต้องละเอียดกว่านั้นนะคะแล้วก็เพื่อให้ทำกันบ้านนี้ได้ขอซิมูเลตนิดนึงให้มันมี dirty เนาะให้มันมี dirty เพื่อ support homework นี้นะคะเพราะฉะนั้นคุณจะต้องส่งเป็น Excel ไฟล์1 ไฟล์นะแล้ว Excel ไฟล์1 ไฟล์นี้ให้หน้าแรกก็คือชีทแรกเขียนชื่อเขียน student ID เขียนชื่อนะของกลุ่มนะใครเป็นสมาชิกบ้างพวกอะไรก็ว่าไปเนาะนะชื่ออะไรนะคะชีทแรกปุ๊บชีทถัดมาก็จะต้องเป็นเรื่องของว่า Data คุณ generate ด้วยวิธีไหนพร้อมที่คุณใช้เป็นยังไงบ้างมี assumption ในพร้อมมี context อะไรบ้างที่คุณให้กับพร้อมตัวนั้นนะคะแล้วก็สร้างเป็น data description อาจจะแยกมาอีกชีทหนึ่งเป็น data description data dictionary เหมือนในสไลด์31ในเลคเชอร์ที่แล้วเนาะที่เขียนว่ามีข้อ attribute อะไรบ้างนะอธิบายว่า attribute นี้คืออะไรนะคะประเภทข้อมูลของ attribute แล้วก็ตัวอย่างข้อมูลว่ามันควรจะเป็นค่าอะไรได้บ้างที่มัน valid นะคะก็เป็น data dic เนาะ แยกมาชีทหนึ่งนะคะจากนั้นก็เอาข้อมูลที่เจนออกมาแล้วเนี่ยแอ p พลายเข้าไปด้วย Power Query เหมือนครั้งที่แล้วที่เราทำนะคะคุณอาจจะมีทั้ง Fact Table มี Dimension Table มี Table ที่มันเป็น Entity แวดล้อมหลายๆ Table ก็แอ p พลายมันให้หมดนะคะจากนั้นหลักๆแล้วคือให้เรา explore โดยการเลือกมา3 attribute ซึ่ง3 attribute เนี้ยส่วนใหญ่ควรจะต้อง priority ให้กับ numeric ก็คือ interval หรือ ratio ก็ได้มันต้องมีแหละ มันเป็น transaction เรื่อง bank business นะคะเลือกมา3 attribute แล้วก็ทำเหมือนกับคราวที่แล้วที่เราทำใน lab ก็คือหา descriptive statistic ด้วยตัว data analysis tool analysis tool pack สร้าง box plot สร้าง histogram นะแล้วก็ถ้าจะ generate พวก histogram อะไรนี้ไม่ได้ เพราะว่ามันเป็น categorical attribute ก็หาค่าโหมดค่า median แทน จากนั้นสาย attribute เนี้ยก็อธิบายคุณลักษณะของแต่ละ attribute ก็คือสรุปเนาะเหมือนทำคล้ายๆคราวที่แล้วว่าสมมุติว่าเลือก profit profit descriptive statistic เป็นยังไง box plot เป็นยังไง histogram เป็นยังไงแล้วก็อธิบายอยู่ในชีทนั้นแล้วก็อีก attribute หนึ่งก็อีกชีทหนึ่งอะไรอย่างเงี้ยเนาะหรืออาจจะทั้งหมดอยู่ในชีทเดียวกันแล้วคุณก็อธิบาย3 อันนะคะก็คือเขียนลงไปในเซลล์ใน Excel เลยนะไม่ต้องมาแยกเป็น document อะไรอีกนะคะอธิบายสั้นๆคุณจะใช้ AI ช่วยอะไรอย่างนี้ก็เรื่องคุณแต่ว่ามันจะไปเชื้อ AI 100%ก็ไม่ใช่นะคะสเต็ปที่4ก็คือใช้ Power Query ในการคลีนข้อมูลนะอย่างน้อยๆ2 สเต็ปในการคลีนนะวันนี้เราทำไปหลายสเต็ปเลยเนาะเอาแค่2เพราะฉะนั้นเวลาพี่เขาตรวจเขาก็จะเข้าไปใน Power Query คุณใช่ไหมเราก็จะดูว่ามันมีสเต็ปในการคลีนอย่างน้อยๆ2 อันหรือเปล่านะคะก็อันนี้เนาะแล้วก็อันสุดท้ายก็คือตัว merge ก็คือเนื่องจากคุณมีหลายเทเบิลครูเข้าใจว่าหลายเทเบิลคือมีหลายชีตคุณก็จะเลือก lookup functions ก็ได้หรืออาจจะเลือก power query ที่ทำเมื่อกี้นี้ก็ได้ในการ merge เข้าด้วยกันทำอันเดียวพอทำคู่เดียวพอให้ดูว่าคุณทำเป็นแต่ถ้าคุณไม่ได้มีหลายชีตข้อมูลไม่ได้หลายชีตให้คุณลองเจนแสดงว่าจริงๆแล้วน่ะตอนที่คุณคิด business question ตอนแรกอาจจะยังไม่ work 100%เพราะโดยปกติแล้วเนี่ยถ้ามันมี business question ที่มัน solid เพียงพอเนี่ย คุณจะต้องมี fact table แล้วมี table ข้างเคียงอย่างน้อยๆ2-3 table แน่ๆถ้าไม่มีเนี่ยเป็นสัญญาณและที่ว่าquestion คุณอาจจะไม่ละเอียดไม่ solid พอลองไปดูปรับอยู่ใหม่เนาะก็คือปรับได้ก็เห็น analytic framework เรามันสามารถย้อนกลับไปกลับมาได้นะคะแล้วก็เนี่ยให้มันมีการ merge ระหว่าง sheet หรือว่าระหว่าง table นะคะจะใช้วิธี lookup หรือว่าใช้ power query ก็ได้โชว์ให้เห็นว่าคุณทำเหมือนกันนะคะก็เหมือนเดิมสองวีคให้เวลา2 วีคเนาะในการทำการบ้านนี้ก็การบ้านนี้อาจจะใช้เวลามากกว่าการบ้านที่แล้วนะคะต้องดูตัวข้อมูลด้วยว่ามัน make sense เปล่าเนาะบางคนครูยังดูว่ามันยังไม่ค่อย valid ยังไม่ค่อย solid อ่ะมันดูแบบมันจะจะ detect move account ได้มันต้องรู้เยอะกว่านั้นไหมแล้วของบางคนเหมือนให้ให้ attribute มาแล้วมันเหมือนมัน detect ได้จริงเหรอมันต้องมีความรู้เยอะกว่านั้นหรือเปล่ามันต้องมีอะไรอ่ะมันต้องมีวันที่มันต้องมีต้องคำนวณได้อะไรพวกเนี้ยเรื่องพวกเนี้ย characteristic พวกนี้แสดงว่าคุณอาจจะยังไม่ study หลักการของบัญชีมาพวกนี้เยอะพอเนาะคุณจะไป rely on แค่ Gen AI ไม่ได้บางทีคุณต้องให้ความรู้กับมันด้วยเนาะคุณอาจจะต้องไป research หรือไปดูข่าวว่าเอ๊ะเขาเจิมบัญชีม้ามันพฤติกรรมมันเป็นยังไงบ้างไปทำพวกนี้มาเป็น research ด้วยนะคะคุณจะได้ทำโปรเจกต์ได้ดียิ่งขึ้นเนาะเพราะสุดท้ายคะแนนโปรเจกต์มัน35%ค่ะมันค่อนข้างเยอะอยู่ค่ะ แต่อันนี้คือการบ้านเนาะการบ้านคือการบ้านเพราะฉะนั้นโปรเจกต์คือสุดท้ายแล้วเพราะว่าการบ้านมันอาจจะทำแล้วอิเล็กเคกค่ะเจอนี้ผิดนู่นนี่นะไม่เป็นไรนะคะอันนี้ยังไม่ใช่คะแนนของโปรเจกต์อันนี้เป็นคะแนนของการบ้านเนาะการบ้านคือเทสว่าคุณทำเป็นทำอะไรอย่างนี้เฉยๆยังไม่ได้เทสหลักการวิเคราะห์ยังไม่ได้เทส analytic mindset นะคะโอเคเพราะฉะนั้นทำการบ้านเพื่อให้รู้เนาะว่าเฮ้ยมันเวิร์กไม่เวิร์ก นะคะถ้ามันไม่เวิร์กจะได้กลับไปแก้ได้เนาะอ่ะมีคำถามอะไรไหมสำหรับการบ้านสอบถามการส่งงานของ homework 2เป็นกลุ่มอย่างเหมือนใน homework 1พี่เขาจะได้ขี้เกียจไปนั่งดูเนาะก็ส่งทุกคนนะแต่ว่าก็คือกลุ่มเดียวกันก็ไฟล์เดียวกันปะประมาณนี้นะคะจริงๆใน Moodle มันแยกกลุ่มได้แหละแต่มันต้องเสียเวลามานั่งเลือกโอเคมีคำถามอื่นไหมอ่ะถ้าไม่มีคำถามอื่นก็ควิสเนาะครูเปิดควิสก่อน